Hello everyone and welcome to Quality Old Games. Today we are making another buildings tier list in Rome Total War, and this time from all of the Rome factions. So all of the temples from all of the Roman factions will be included. And the settlements are rated from their utility. The prerequisites for future or further buildings in the building chain matters somewhat, but if a building, for example, I would put epic stone walls to S tier or more must-build tier, does not mean that large stone walls must be in the must-build tier as well. So it can really well be in bad or useless. But of course the prerequisite affects a bit of the rating. But without further ado, let's begin. First we have Governor's House. Clearly S tier because, well, you cannot build anything without it. And here the prerequisites matter quite a bit. And pretty much same applies to Governor's Villa. So with this Governor's House you can build something, but not really anything useful. So this clearly is must build as well. And of course you can unlock some really nice buildings such as port mines in the early game. The first barracks, well, rather first proper barracks, so you can recruit Hastati and so on. Then we have Governor's Palace. Perhaps not quite as critical as these two, but still really important, so it's going to go to the lower end of must-build tier. And then we have Proconsul's Palace. Once again, rather important, but in my opinion, clearly least important out of these four. So, for example, after Marian reforms, you can recruit early legionary cohorts at tier 3, which is kind of, well, the first unit that really begins to pack a punch even in the late game. So that's rather essential. This is really nice to have, but not quite as important as this one. And then we have Imperial Palace. Rather nice in most cases, but it's rather expensive and not applicable pretty much in every city. Of course, it unlocks the ultimate buildings for Roman factions, but those buildings are rather expensive and so on, so I think it's only strong good. Then let's move to walls. First we have Wooden Palisade. It adds quite a bit of survivability for the settlement. So the enemy just cannot march in. It gives you at least one turn, usually, time to thwart the siege. Then we have Wooden Wall. I think it's rather useless, except it's a prerequisite for other walls, but it doesn't really add anything new compared to this Wooden Palisade. So yeah, I don't think it's useful. But then we have stone walls, and in my opinion they are actually even better than Wooden Palisades, of course, if one takes the cost and so on into account. So it provides towers which fire automatically, and Roman walls are pretty much made out of cheese because they shoot inside as well. And stone walls already begin to allow you to utilize quite a few cheesy strategies to win enemies that have multiple times the army you have. And in my opinion, large stone wall is actually the best wall. So a really good building. There are 4 firing slit slots, whatever they are called, murder holes, in the tower to both sides, whereas the stone wall only has 2. So this really does damage to any enemy that's marching outside or inside of the wall. Then we have Epic Stone Wall. It's rather nice. It prevents enemy from digging underneath it. At the same time, the enemy siege equipment or siege towers become bigger, and these towers are armed with ballistas, which actually deal less damage quite often than the arrow towers here. So I think this is actually rather bad compared to the large stone wall. You may disagree, but that's my view. Then let's move to barracks. First we have militia barracks. or rather actually just barracks, and you can recruit town watch from here. And as we all know, town watch is rather bad. Militia barracks is prerequisite for a higher tier barracks, so kind of needed, necessary evil to have this one. So you can get militia barracks and, for example, hastati. And this is really good barracks pre-Marian time. After Marian reforms, you can get only auxilia from this one, and at least I don't like auxilia one bit in the game. So yeah, kind of in the early game, strong, good tier, perhaps weak must build tier. But in the late game, I would say this is rather useless, except it's a prerequisite for higher tier barracks, so I think it's overall a good one, mostly because of hastati. Then we have Legion barracks, so this allows you to recruit principes and early legionary cohorts, and that's actually, I think, one of the most important Roman military buildings in the game. Of course, I have to admit that I like infantry armies most, not cavalry armies, so perhaps that's affecting things a bit, but in my opinion, if not the most important military building, then among the most important ones. Then we have army barracks. Yeah, rather nice. Begins to be rather costly, 4,800. And of course you get legionary cohort, so that's really nice. And in pre-Marian times you get triarii, and I don't really like triarii in this game either, so that's the triarii and the cost and building time that puts this building only to good tier for me. And then we have urban barracks. I have made too many videos about urban cohorts versus something else, and I am a bit too much a fanboy for urban cohorts. But despite that, I will give this only average tier. Granted, urban cohort is one of the best infantry units in the game, if not the best one, and clearly among the best units in the game as well. But this costs almost 10,000, I don't remember, is it 8 turns to build? So really expensive, and you could use that money to train, for instance, early legionary cohorts, and you have almost half an army ready by the time you finish this and can begin to contemplate if you want to train troops. So the cost is really, really high, in my opinion. Then let's move to stables. First we have kind of the normal stables. You can recruit equites from here. I think rather nice unit in the early game. Let's put it here. So, and war dogs as well. Rather cheap, 3 turns to build, so rather nice. Then we have cavalry stables. Pre-Marian times it allows one to recruit cavalry auxilia, which is of course nice, and in post-Marian times Roman cavalry, which is rather okay. But here once again the price and building time begins to affect things. Well, I think it's good. Yeah, let's put it there. Not just average. Then we have Hippodrome. I think it's clearly good tier. And you can recruit legionary cavalry, and at the same time you can use the building to maintain public order by organizing races. So that's a really nice bonus. And because of those, it goes to good tier, despite it's rather costly and takes quite long to build. Then we have Circus Maximus, allowing Praetorian cavalry, and, well, in my opinion, it's rather obsolete. Because Praetorian cavalry is not that much better than legionary cavalry. And once again, this is costing almost at 10,000, and it doesn't bring benefits for public order any more than this normal Hippodrome, so I think it's only in the strong bad tier. Let's move to missile infantry buildings. First we have practice range. I don't like short range missile troops such as Velites, so in my opinion this is bad. But of course it's a prerequisite for archer range, and here you can recruit Roman archers and you can recruit archer auxilia, which both are really good units in my opinion, especially archer auxilia. So that's most definitely good tier building for me. Then we move to catapult trains. If you have watched my other tier lists, I don't really like missile weapons in the game. So, in my opinion, it's pretty much useless. It's already quite expensive, and, well, since I don't like those missile weapons, it's useless, at least for me. And the same applies to Siege Engineer, except to higher degree, because this once again costs that 10,000 to build and how many turns and so on. So, yeah, really useless, at least for me. Perhaps you like siege weapons a bit more, so perhaps they are higher tier for you. Then let's move to upgrade buildings for infantry. First we have Blacksmith. I think it's rather good. Of course, it doesn't upgrade all of the weapons, but at least somewhat. And it's a prerequisite for Armorer, which in my opinion is clearly good building, because +1 to weapons and +1 to armor is quite strong combination if you compare a unit with a regular one. So that's really nice. And then we have Foundry, giving +2 to weapons and armor. And, well, it requires tier 5 city, it requires Great Forum, and it costs over about 6,500 denarii, so rather expensive. Of course, when you get it, it's rather nice to have. So those silver upgrades for weapons and armor is really nice. So a good building, despite the high costs and high requirements. Then let's move to Trader. It's kind of a prerequisite for some of the buildings, I guess, Blacksmith already. It boosts population growth, which can be important, especially for Juliai, if you are conquering barbarian settlements. And of course, there is that slight increase to trade, so I think it's a good building, and costs only 600 and takes 2 turns to build, so that's really nice. Then we have Market. Once again, a prerequisite for some buildings, a bit more costly than Trader, and increases a bit the trade income you get. Then we are moving to Forum. Once again, the price actually doubles compared to Market, and the benefits are kind of decreasing proportionally if you consider the build time and cost, so that's only average for me. Then we have Great Forum. The same applies here. The cost doubles, the benefits do not increase that much. Of course, this is a prerequisite for the Foundry, so that's why it gets average tier and not bad tier. Then we have Kuria. It's not kind of prerequisite for anything, costs about 10,000. Of course, it brings a slight increase to public order, so that might be important at times, but really the other benefits are rather negligent, so I would put it somewhere around here. I think it's rather obsolete. Of course, that public order bonus is nice, but otherwise, yeah, I don't usually build it. Then we have ports. The basic port first, I think it's clearly S tier, because it can bring several hundred denarii per turn, perhaps even higher amounts if you get a good port city, but usually the most important economic building you can build in a city. Then we have a shipwright. Because Romans have rather good settlements and there are good settlements to capture nearby, you usually get to use at least 2 trade routes or trade fleets, which this brings, so I think it's a good building. And relatively cheap, because only 1,600, and the benefits are quite significant. And of course, you can recruit triremes from there. And this is only 800, so clearly better there as well. Then we have Dockyard, costing 3,200, and the price hurts, and also it provides only one additional trade fleet, and that might actually be useless in quite a few ports or coastal settlements. Of course, you can recruit quinqueremes, if I pronounce that correctly. So, yeah, I think average, perhaps a situational a bit. In the barbarian territories, kind of bad or useless. In the rich Greek, Asia Minor, Italian territories, Carthage, it might be actually good. So, I mean, it's average. Then let's move to farms. First we have land clearance. I mean, it's okay, especially if you need to increase population growth. It's cheap. 2 turns to build. Requires only governor's house to build. So, yeah, that's rather nice. Usually, in my playstyle, I try to quite often minimize the population growth because it leads to public order issues at some point, and you cannot demolish farms. So I'm rather careful when building them. And well, this is perhaps one exception. Perhaps communal farming could be another exception. But in my opinion, in most cases, it's becoming more trouble than is actually worth it. Perhaps excluding the barbarian settlements in the north. But, well, I'm not sure how much you want to develop those barbarian settlements. So, yeah, at least in my playstyle, this is only average. Then we have crop rotation. The same applies as to communal farming, except this costs more. And, well, I don't really think it's beneficial. Then we have irrigation. The same applies to this to more extent than all of these. If you have already tier 4 city, you most definitely are not struggling with getting enough population in most cases. And if you do, you can transfer population from other cities by using peasants and so on. So I think this is almost useless, and the monetary increase from these ones, it's not that great. And then we have latifundia, once again, in my opinion, rather useless building, because it requires tier 5 settlement. You cannot upgrade the settlement anymore. The increased population there will lead to public order issues more likely, so this is actually, in my opinion, affecting rather negatively the settlement than bringing benefits. So, yeah, in my opinion, it's useless. Then we have roads, increased movement speed, increased trade by land, clearly important, costs only 400, 1 turn to build, nice. Paved roads, a huge boost to trade income, and a nice increase to movement speed. So I think it's rather must build. It increases the efficiency of your armies significantly if you need to react to enemy movements. And then we have highways, a bit more on the expensive side, but 2,400 is not that much. Huge increase to trade once again, and a slight increase to movement speed. So, in my opinion, rather good investment in most of the cases, especially in the richer areas of the campaign map. Then let's move to public health buildings. First we have sewers. Well, these increase public order. That's nice. And at the same time, they increase population growth, which is not that nice, at least in bigger cities. But of course, the prevention of plague is rather important in quite a few cases. So, and this is relatively cheap investment, so I think this gets something like weak good from me. Then we have public baths, increases the benefits the sewers provide. I think it's, well, average. I usually build it. So let's put it somewhere around here. And then we have aqueduct. This begins to be rather a luxury in my playthrough, so let's put it strong bad. And then we have city plumbing. Well, it can bring some benefits in huge cities, but well, it's rather a big investment and the benefits are not really that good in my opinion. Then we have academy. It provides nice retinue members for generals, so I think it's clearly A tier for me. Let's put it somewhere around here. And it doesn't cost that much, and if I remember correctly, it might even provide public order bonus, or was it in Barbarian Invasion? Either case, that retinue members is rather nice already, so clearly A tier. Then we have scriptorium, average in my opinion, because it's doubling the cost and the benefits are not doubling that much, so yeah, only average. And then we have Ludus Magna. Yeah, the cost is once again doubled compared to scriptorium, so this is 6,400, and was it 5 or 6 turns to build, so quite expensive, and once again the benefits are not really that great. So perhaps in some selected settlements, but I usually tend to skip this building by. Then we have arena, basic one, tier 3 building. A slight increase to public order allows you to trade gladiators. Those are not really the reason why this gets a place in S tier, or rather must build tier. It's because you can organize games. And by organizing games, you sacrifice some money to rather nice boost to public order. And from tier 3 settlements, that's quite something already, so that's really useful. Of course, we have bigger versions. First we have amphitheater, a slight increase to public order, but the games kind of don't improve. Of course, you can use games to gain popularity with masses in the game, but well, I think you can do that easier by conquering territories. So yeah, average costs 3,200, 4 turns to build. Yeah, it's average, somewhere around here. And then we have Colosseum, really costly, and I don't see that much benefits in it compared to even the original arena. So that's the reason why it gets only bad tier from me. Then let's move to temples. First, shrine to Ceres, or Ceres, how do you pronounce that? Well, I will pronounce Ceres. I think it's good for Julia. It's a Julia temple. So that boost to population growth combined with public order bonus can be nice in the early game. If you want to grow your settlements, if you want to grow the settlements you're capturing from barbarians. So that's rather nice. So that's a good building from me. Then we move to bigger temple, Temple of Ceres. I guess it's average building. The same reasons apply as to that shrine, but well, it's not really that good actually, in my opinion, because then you already have that tier 2 settlement, and sooner or later you are beginning to struggle with the public order issues. So I might build Temple of Ceres, but usually this is the building I demolish and then move to, for example, to Temple of Jupiter. Then let's move to large Temple of Ceres, and well, the same applies as to the previous one except to larger degree, so it gets only place in bad tier for me. Then we have Awesome Temple of series. The problems are increasing as well as the price and building time. So yeah, I guess it's going somewhere around here. And then we have Pantheon of series. Well, it brings some benefits from other temples, so I think it's actually on the average tier. And let's see if I can... Yeah, we need a bit more space here. And then let's move to Shrine to Bacchus. Bacchus. Once again, how do you pronounce that? Well, it's bringing happiness, or rather public order through happiness. That's okay, but if you compare it to the Jupiter temples, then it's not quite that good. So yeah, only average in my opinion. I don't actually... Well, if I'm actually honest, I'm never building this. So, I mean, it's not bad by itself, but compared to the temples and shrines of Jupiter, it's actually rather bad. So, yeah, I think, well, this can... Well, it can go there. And don't get me wrong, if Julii didn't have temples of Jupiter, the temples and shrines of Bacchus would go somewhere around, well, average tier. Perhaps even good tier, some of them. But as Julii has this Jupiter chain here, and the difference is that Bacchus provides public order only through happiness, but Jupiter provides it partially through law. And law decreases corruption, so these temples bring financial benefit as well. And in my opinion, Shrine to Jupiter is clearly S tier. Well, not perhaps clearly, but it's must-build tier. And perhaps on the weaker end, because the benefits are not really that great, but temples are perhaps the best way to maintain public order, so these are needed. I think the same applies to Temple of Jupiter, so rather important. Large Temple of Jupiter, the costs are increasing and the benefits compared to the, or in relation to the costs and building time are decreasing, so perhaps that's the reason it only gets placed in good tier. And the same applies pretty much to the Awesome Temple of Jupiter. Once again, the costs are increasing and the benefits related to them decreasing a bit. And the same applies to Pantheon, so perhaps somewhere around here. So yeah, I guess there are no questions what's my favorite temple when I'm playing with Julii. Then let's move to Brutiized temples. First we have Shrine to Juno, and actually it brings population growth through public health. So pretty much same kind of buildings as sewers, public baths, and so on. So in my opinion, this is better than the Ceres chain, because you get public order from the population growth, and it decreases the chance of plague. So these are in a bit higher tier for me than those of Ceres. So good, and then we have a bit weaker good. Let's put it somewhere. Well, it's actually improved sewers. Yeah, because they provide additional public order bonus. Then we have perhaps actually it should be a bit higher. Let's put it somewhere around there. Then we have Large Temple of Juno. I guess it can go somewhere around here. Improved public baths. Awesome Temple of Juno. Somewhere around here. And then we have Pantheon around Juno. rather expensive, but I think average building, because there are better alternatives. Then we have Mercery temple chain that practically boosts trade. I'm not sure if this is a good one. Well, I have been quite excited, especially in my early playthroughs, about this temple. Now I can get a proper trade empire and so on and so forth. And then I have built this Mercery temple chain and noticed that the increases in trade income are rather small. So if Brutii didn't have any other temples, I would put this into average category. But I think once again there are so many, or rather the temples to Juno and especially temples to Mars are better. So that I think these are a bit obsolete. And they are actually even worse than the temples of Bacchus. So yeah, I think they are just obsolete. Let's hope we can actually have enough space here. Then we have, in my opinion, the Brutiai's best temple chain, Shrine to Mars. Well, actually the shrine is bad because it only adds 5% to public order and no other benefits, so it's bad, but it's a prerequisite for the other temples. And first we have Temple of Mars, which is rather decent, bringing 1 experience point, or rather 1 experience to units trained in the city. And then we have, well, actually, perhaps it could be a bit higher. Then we have Large Temple of Mars, 2 experience points for new troops. So a good building. Awesome Temple of Mars, plus 3 experience. And then we have Pantheon of Mars, some additional benefits, such as increased trade goods and so on. So I think, yeah, it goes to good tier as well. And then we are moving to Scipio's temples. First we have Shrine to Vulcan. Shrine of Vulcan gives you +1 to light weapons and slight boost to public order. So that's rather nice. So I think this is already, well, actually it's so cheap that I think it deserves a place in good tier already. Then we have Temple of Vulcan increasing, if I remember correctly, heavy weapons as well. So that's really nice. Clearly one of the better temples. Then we have Awesome Temple of Vulcan, which actually already increases armor and the weapons too, so rather nice. Actually, Scipii are the only Roman faction that can get +3 weapons and armor in the campaign, and that's already quite something in the campaign setting, so a really good temple. And then we have that Awesome Temple of Vulcan. Doesn't bring any upgrade bonuses anymore, but well, it's solid one. I guess it brings a bit of experience to the troops, so clearly one of the better temples. And it seems we need to zoom out once again. Then we have Pantheon of Vulcan. I think this is once again S tier because +2 experience, public order through law at least a bit. So perhaps actually this Vulcan temple chain is the best one that Romans can get, at least in the cities where you can train troops. So rather nice one. Of course, in some settlements where you are not training troops and are struggling with public order, that Jupiter chain is actually better. But yeah, I think that's rather nice over there. Then we have Temples of Saturn, which actually are rather similar to that building chain of Jupiter. So they are next to each other. I think, well, you will see soon why I will put these ahead of the temples of Jupiter. Actually, where is that? Oh, there. Hiding over there. And then there. And we have that awesome temple over there. And then we have Pantheon of Saturn. And if I was talking about this temple chain of Vulcan being the best one, I think I have actually mistaken. Here this one actually goes a bit downwards, perhaps somewhere around here. And the reason is Shrine to, or rather Saturn temple chain, is the same as Jupiter chain, providing law and happiness bonus. So the highest public order bonuses that temple provide, decreasing corruption and so on. But when you build the Pantheon, you get the weapons and armor upgrades, the similar ones you get from the temple chain of Vulcan. So you get the best public order bonus, and in addition you get the military upgrades that are rather important. So that's the reason why actually the Saturn temple chain is the best one, in my opinion. Then we have still one last temple chain left, and they only bring slight bonuses to public order. So because of that, they are relatively bad. Of course, this is, well, easy to build, but the bonuses are rather bad until you get to Awesome Temple of Neptune. And here you can recruit Corvus Quinqueremes, the second best ship in the entire game. Well, that's nice. In my opinion, these Corvus Quinqueremes and all of the Quinqueremes are rather obsolete, because triremes, in my opinion, are the most cost efficient, because they take only one turn to train or build, whereas these Quinqueremes take 2 turns, and they are not actually that much better than the other ones. But, well, for the sake of you getting to play around, or I getting play around with the among the best ships in the game, I guess this is average. And perhaps the same applies to Pantheon of Neptune, and here you can get Decaries, and clearly the best ships in the game, but that alone does not justify a place here, but you also get the benefits for military units. So +1 to weapons and armor and so on. So that's really the reason why this gets placed in good tier. Getting the gear from here would only give it perhaps bad or average tier. But in any case, this is my tier list of Roman buildings in Rome Total War. Did I miss something? Did I add something too much? Do you agree or disagree? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Have a great rest of the day. Quality Old Games out.